Hello, I'm Frankie Griffin again with the Real Estate School for Success. And in this video, we're going to do a little bit of appraisal math. And, just math in general seems to create some issues for a lot of people. All I can tell you, it just takes practice. And, the good news here is you can rewind this video and watch it as many times as you want to watch it. And then hopefully it'll just come to you. And really, that's the biggest suggestion I could make to you or make for you if math is an issue. But again, these questions we're going to look at, some practice questions here. These are appraisal math questions, dealing with gross rent multiplier, capitalization, even making some adjustments if you were doing sales comparison. And hopefully this will be helpful to you, but let's just jump right into it and see how we do. First question, if the potential gross rental income from a property is $75,000, the vacancy rate is 5%, and the additional income from laundry facilities and extra storage is $1,500. What is the effective gross income? First of all, a couple things you want to pay attention to in this question. One, you see where, in the first line there, it says the potential gross rental income. Potential. And then on the bottom line of the question, it's asking what is the effective gross income. There's a little bit of difference there, so you got to make sure you understand that to get to really do well with this question. The potential is really what it sounds like. This is how much I could potentially make, okay? And obviously it says the potential is $75,000. But we have expenses, right? We got some additional, I say expense, you got a vacancy rate. Let me just leave it at that. Forget the expense. You got a vacancy rate here of 5%. So the potential would be $75,000 if every unit was rented 100% of the time throughout the year. If that were true, then you got a potential of $75,000. Unfortunately, it's not true. We got about a 5% vacancy rate. So we got to take that into account along with the additional income from storage and laundry. Then that would give us the effective gross income. So where do we start here? Well, we always have to start with vacancy, okay? Anytime they give you a vacancy rate, you got to figure out what does that equate to in terms of dollars first, okay? So the way you do this, you just take the $75,000 potential times the vacancy rate, in this case of 5%, would give you $3,750. So $3,750 is coming right off the top, right? So we'll take the $75,000 minus the $3,750, which again is the vacancy. So now our income sits at $71,250. But now we got to take into account the laundry facilities and extra storage of $1,500. So that's an additional income. So if I add the $1,500, now we have $72,750, which would be the effective gross income. Hopefully this was not too hard here. But all you're doing, you got to subtract out what the vacancy is and then add the income. That's it. So you go from the potential gross of $75,000 to an effective gross of $72,750. All right, next question. A building is valued at $325,000 and contains 6 apartments that rent for $900 each per month. The owner estimates that the net operating income is 70% of the gross receipts. What is the capitalization rate? Now, and I probably should have said this up front, but I've done videos on how to do capitalization, how to do the math. And I've also done videos on how to do the gross rent multiplier. Y'all, again, the math. In fact, and if you haven't already looked at those videos, in fact, I'd encourage you, go ahead and stop now if you haven't. Watch those videos to make sure you know how to do the capitalization math as well as gross rent multiplier. In fact, I'll have those links for both of those videos. It's two different ones. I'll have those links put in the description of this video so you can go back and look at those. So I'm not really teaching you how to do it. We're just looking at some math problems here and how to solve them. So the question is, what is the capitalization rate? Well, again, if you looked at the other videos, you should know and memorize the formulas I provided to you in those videos. You got to know these formulas, or the state exam is going to eat your lunch when it comes to this kind of math. All right. So what's first here? Well, the first thing we have to look at is, what's the income? Well, we know we have 6 apartments that rent for $900 a month. That would give us $5,400 per month. Now, if you recall, again, the formula to figure out the capitalization rate is the net operating income, and again, that's the annual net income, divided by the value, that would give you the rate. So just a quick review there, that's the formula. So we know the income is $5,400 per month, but again, I have to know the annual income. So $5,400 times 12 months would give me an annual income of $64,800. Now, remember what kind, again, based on the formula, the formula calls for net income. Now, I know the annual income is $64,800, but that's gross income. Remember, there's a difference between gross and net. Net income is what you have left after all the expenses have been paid. Okay? Gross is before expenses. Net is after expenses. I have to know, anytime you're dealing with capitalization, you have to know the annual net operating income. Well, in this case, it kind of helped in this question in a way. It kind of makes it a little bit easier because it says the net income is 70% of the gross receipts. So to figure out the net income, all I have to do is take the $64,800 times 70%, and then I have my net income of $45,360. Now, once you know your net income, you're almost done at this point, right? All you have to do is divide it by whatever they give you to divide by. Remember, they either have to give you in the question, they must provide you the cap rate or the value. They got to give you one or the other. Whichever one they do not give you, obviously, is the one they're asking you to solve for. So in this question, they actually gave us the value. And so to figure out the cap rate, you just take the net income divided by the value, and that will be the cap rate. But if they gave you the cap rate asking for the value, then you just take your net income divided by the cap rate, and then that would give you the value. So the key is, if I can figure out the net income, the annual net income, all I do is divide it by one or the other, and they have to give you one or the other, right? So in this example or question, I divide it by the $325,000 value, and that gives me a cap rate of about 13.9%. Now, y'all, look, and I've said this in other videos, and so I will say it again. When it comes to, in this example, 13.9%, that is not the exact cap rate. It might be 13.78%, or 8.7, or something like that. So, I've rounded it. In this case, I rounded to one decimal place. Y'all, on the exam, you need to pay attention to that because they will also tell you in the question. Round your cap rate maybe to the nearest whole number, or to 2 decimal places, or in this case 1 decimal place. Y'all, so make sure you do whatever it tells you to do in the question. But just know that, y'all, if you take 45,360 divided by 325,000, it won't be exactly 13.9, but if you round it, then it would be 13.9. So you just want to be clear on that. And y'all, that rounding guidance I just gave you is going to apply throughout all the questions we go over. Okay. So hopefully that one wasn't too hard. We got through that one okay. So the next question says we have an apartment complex that has 10 units that rent for $1,000 per month each. Expenses are $2,500 per month and the vacancy rate is 7%. Sales comparables indicate the capitalization rate of 10%. So what is the value of the apartment complex? Y'all, it's a different question, still dealing with capitalization, and obviously the formula would still apply. Y'all, again, annual net income divided by the cap rate would give you your value. So we got to figure this out because you'll notice, the first thing we need to know is the net income, but they don't provide the net income in this question. They do provide you with enough information that we can figure out the income. For example, it says we have 10 units that rent for $1,000 per month each, right? So $1,000 times 10 units, y'all, that's going to be $10,000 per month. But y'all, we have to know annual. So the 10,000 times 12, so we now know our income is $120,000 per year. However, y'all, that's gross income. Y'all, again, what kind of income do we need? Net. Y'all, again, net income divided by the cap rate. Okay. So we have to now subtract whatever expenses, and it says the expenses are $2,500 per month and a vacancy rate of 7%. Now, y'all, this is where you better be careful. Y'all, anytime they provide you with a vacancy rate, y'all, the vacancy rate in this case is 7%. That is always based on gross income, okay? So vacancy is an expense, and we will have to subtract, this 7%. But y'all, please remember this. Y'all, we must subtract the vacancy from the gross income before any other expenses. Y'all, in this case, they just gave you one expense of $2,500 a month. Y'all, they could give you other expenses as well. But just make sure you know, y'all, vacancy rate has to be subtracted first. Y'all, you subtract these other expenses and then try to subtract 7% from that, you're going to have the wrong answer. Now, they'll probably provide you with that answer as an option, but it'll be wrong. Because, y'all, you have to subtract vacancy from the total gross income. So that's the next thing we have to do. 120,000 minus 7%, which would be 8,400, would now give us an income of 111,600. Now we can go ahead and subtract the other expenses. Y'all, in this case is $2,500 a month, but we know 2,500 times 12 months because we got to have the annual expenses. So that's going to be $30,000. So now I can subtract that $30,000 from the 111,600, and that leaves us with an annual net income of $81,600. Okay. Y'all, again, now once we know the net income, y'all, what do we do? What are we always going to do with net income? Divide it by something. Always, every time. Y'all, so once I get that net income, I know we're good. Well, what am I going to divide it by? Well, remember, there's only two things, and they got to give you one or the other. And y'all, it says in the question the capitalization rate will be 10%. So if I divide the net income by 10%, that would give me the value, in this case, of $816,000. So voila, the value of the apartment complex is $816,000 based on the cap rate of 10%. Y'all, several steps involved with this, but y'all, at the end of the day, again, if you just remember the formula, y'all, what's the first thing I got to know? The annual net income. You've got to figure that out. Y'all, sometimes they'll just tell you in the question the net income is whatever, and that makes things a whole lot easier. But sometimes they won't give you the net income, but they'll give you enough information, as we do in this question. You're going to have to do a little bit of math to figure out what that net income is. Y'all, again, if you need to, you can rewind, watch this again, and get it straight in your mind. Y'all, the only way you're going to get proficient in this math is just to keep practicing. Keep doing it. All right. Y'all, let's look at another question. A rental property rents for $1,200 a month. Comparable sales in the area indicate the gross rent multiplier is 115. So what is the value of the rental property? Y'all, again, if you didn't watch the video on gross rent multiplier on how to do that, you need to watch it. But y'all, that's pretty simple right there. Y'all, again, formulas for this as well. But y'all, to figure out the value of the property using gross rent multiplier, then the formula is just, y'all, you take the monthly rent times the gross rent multiplier. Y'all, that's all there is to. Y'all, this is pretty easy here. Voila. So $1,200 in rent times the 115. Y'all, so the value is $138,000. Y'all, that's a pretty easy question right there. Y'all, gross rent multiplier in itself is honestly very easy. Very easy. Okay. Well, let's look at another one. A rental property rent for $1,000 per month. A comparable sale in the area sold for $125,000 and rents for $1,200 per month. What's the value of the rental property? So in this question, remember there's three components to the formula, right? Y'all, if we're trying to figure out, in this case, value, we got to know the monthly rent, we got to know the gross rent multiplier, and that'll give us the value. But if I'm trying to figure out the gross rent multiplier, then I just need to know what the monthly rent is and the value, and then I can figure out the gross rent multiplier. So y'all, look, what I'm about to show you here, this is exactly what I've always done myself when I'm taking an exam. So I know I'm dealing with my subject property. Y'all, in this case, says the property rent for $1,000 a month. Y'all, that's my subject property. But it also gives me a comparable property. And what I'm going to do here is, y'all, I'm just going to fill in these blanks. Okay? I'm going to extract information out of this question and put them in the right places. Y'all, to me, it gives me a better visual where I can see what I'm doing and understand it better. So the first thing it tells me, again, the subject rental property rent for $1,000 per month. So I'll go ahead and stick that under the subject property. Now I've got that information. What else did it say? The comparable sale sold for $125,000. So I now know the value of the comparable, so I stick that in here. And the comparable rents for $1,200 a month, so I can go ahead and put that in here. Well, see, now I now have the two of the three components of this formula, right? Because, y'all, for me to figure out the value of the subject property, I need to know the gross rent multiplier. And you get that by taking the information from comparable sales. Y'all, again, if you're not getting this, you need to watch the video I did on gross rent multiplier. But anyway, y'all, so to get the gross rent multiplier, I just take the property value, in this case $125,000, divided by the rent, $1,200, and that would give me a gross rent multiplier of 104. Now again, I rounded it. Okay, so just Probably won't give you that exact answer, but if you round it, then it should be 104. Well, then I can take the gross rent multiplier, apply it to my subject property. And remember, the formula to figure out the value now is the monthly rent times the gross rent multiplier. And in this case, it would give me a value of $104,000. Okay? I really think it'll help you if you'll you'll have scratch paper when you do your test. Just draw it out. And I'm serious. I do this myself when I've taken appraisal exams, real estate exams. I like to set it up in a way that makes better sense for me. Now, if you can think of a better way to do it than what I did, then so be it. But I need a visual. I need to be able to extract the information they put in the question and put it in a more usable format. And this works for me, so hopefully it'll work for you. But you're going to need these three components for both the subject and the comparable, right? So I just put it in, extract the information, fill in the blanks. That's all I do. All right. By the way, I'm going to back up here just a second. Because this next question, you're going to need to understand this. And again, I did address this in the other video. But just want to make sure you understand what you're looking at here. If you look at that subject property, the rent's 1,000, gross rent multiplier is 104. Here's what that's saying. If I'm the investor or the property owner, if I collect $1,000 a month in rent for 104 months, which is the gross rent multiplier, that will pay off $104,000. That's what that's telling me. This is important to really understand, especially with the next question we're getting ready to try to answer. So $1,000 a month for 104 months will pay off $104,000. Okay? So keep that in mind as we look at this next question. It says this, well, that's not the next question I was hoping for. But anyway, let's look at it. Subject property has 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a garage, and a fireplace. A comparable property sold for $150,000 with 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, garage, and no fireplace. The market indicates a bedroom is worth $5,000, a bathroom is worth $6,000, garage is worth $10,000, and the fireplace is worth $2,000. What is the adjusted sales price of the comparable? So, obviously this is dealing with sales comparison where we have to make adjustments. And, obviously, the values we're getting, for example, says a bathroom is worth $6,000. That is not a real world number. That's just a number to use for this question, okay? Don't try to use these numbers in the real world. You're going to have problems. This is just practice. So anyway, we have to make adjustments to find out what was the adjusted sales price. Well, we know the actual sales price is $150,000. So what we're trying to do here is now we got to figure out, well, what are the differences between the subject property and the comparable property? And then we have to make adjustments for any differences there are. Well, let's see, the subject property says it has 3 bedrooms. Well, the comparable also has 3 bedrooms, so there's no adjustments for that. Then it says the subject property has 2 bathrooms. The comparable has 3 bathrooms. We're going to have to make an adjustment there. Well, it says the value of a bathroom in the question is going to be $6,000. So we're either going to have to add or subtract $6,000 from that comparable's sales price, which again was $150,000. So which one do I do? Do I add it or do I subtract it? And and here's the rule of thumb if you need something to write down to remember. Anytime the comparable property has more than the subject, then you must subtract. But if the comparable has less of something than the subject, then we must add. Y'all, that's the rule. And I'm telling you, if you're not being careful here and you get in a hurry, you're going to add something when you should have subtracted it, or vice versa. So take your time going through this. So does the comparable property have more bathrooms or less bathrooms than the subject? Well, obviously it says they have, the comparable has 3. So that's more than the subject of 2. So then we must subtract. So we know one of our adjustments is going to be, we're going to have to subtract $6,000 for the bathroom. Well, let's see. Well, they both have a garage, apparently, so there's no adjustment for that. But here it says the comparable has no fireplace. The subject does have a fireplace, so we will have to make an adjustment there. And it says the fireplace is worth $2,000. So do I add $2,000 or subtract $2,000? Well, the comparable in this case, in terms of fireplaces, has less than the subject. So if it has less, then I must add. So I'm going to add $2,000 for a fireplace. Now, obviously in this question, then that's all the adjustments we have to make. So if I subtract $6,000, but then I add $2,000, basically that's a net of $4,000 we have to subtract. So our adjusted sales price would be $146,000. Okay? So y'all, hopefully that worked out well for you. Shouldn't be too hard. Y'all, I hope this video was helpful to you. As always, and again, y'all, we're going to have more and more videos. And y'all, if there's a video or something you need help with in the remarks section or in the comments, let me know. Let me know what you need help with, and I'll see if I can't put something together that might help you. So, y'all, again, hope you have a wonderful day and shine for Jesus.